All right, we're here with Chris Durcholz, Chief Master Sergeant, retired, Terre Haute, Indiana. Known each other a long time. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, Jimmy. How you doing?
Real name, Pup?
My given name, yes.
Your given name?
I got given it to me.
All right, well, I think we'll get to that story because I believe that's toward the beginning of your story.
Oh, yeah, so it's way at the beginning.
So I was like staving off the military all through high school and associate's degree in college, and then I ended up in. What's your story? Were you always interested or not?
You know, I would say from an early age, I really was. It's either this or jail, so I figured, what the heck, I'll give this a try because jail wasn't too much fun. No, so when I was 17 years old, my dad took me to go see the Army recruiter. He said, "We got aviation, man. We can get you hooked up." I'm like, "Well, that's what I want." So we drove to Franklin, Indiana, and went to the door, and he said, "Out to lunch." I said, "Well, we're going up to Greenwood anyway." I was getting my senior picture taken. I said, "Let's go see the Air Force." And that was it. I joined the Air Force December the 7th, 1982, delayed entry program.
December the 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah. So, but then I graduated midterm from high school, not because I was particularly at the top half of the class, but maybe the half of the class they were looking at getting rid of early. So I graduated midterm and I moved down to Jasper, Indiana, where I'm from. And one advice my dad gave me right off the bat, he said, "Whatever you do, you're leaving for the military, do not fall in love." That's an easy one. I fall in love 2 or 3 times a night. Anyway, March the 11th, I'm driving through my first night in town, driving through town, and I meet my wife. Didn't know it at the time, but I sure was smitten. So, I blew that. Fell in love. But no, then I wound up in August. I left for active duty basic training, Air Force. August 11th, 1983.
83.
Mm-hmm.
What year did you graduate high school then?
1983.
Just right then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no delays, no anything?
Nope. Contrary to, I'd say contrary to what everyone thought should have happened, I did graduate from high school. And I remember walking off the stage and that's there. Just wanted to make sure they weren't being nice and let me walk through.
Blank piece of paper when you open it up.
See us Monday.
Oh, man.
I do remember when kind of one of the stories that you remember, things that stand on your mind. And that morning I left for basic training. I got up, 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. It seemed early. And my dad drove me to Indianapolis, 141 South Meridian Street. And as we approached the building, 2 or 3 lanes going each way and busy street, and he stopped right out in front, and he was going to turn to me and say something profound, and all he heard was the door slam as I walked off. That was the extent of it.
That was it.
I wasn't much for goodbyes.
And so this was active duty, right?
Active duty Air Force, yeah.
Okay. Did you know about the Guard before you went in the Air Force?
Had no idea. And I was in the active duty for 2 years before I figured it out. Mm-hmm. Someone came in and said, "I'm joining the Air Guard," and I'm like, "What's this Air Guard you speak of?" Really? So yeah, I didn't know anything about it.
So did you end up getting out early Palace Chase? I know that's what I did. I can't remember if you said that you had, you learned about the Guard, so then you're like trying to get there as soon as you can.
Yeah. So basic training, tech school, fell in love, asked Annette to marry me, and we got married in April 27th, 2:30 in the afternoon, 1985. And we left for California, and we were there for probably, right at about a year. And I heard about this Air Guard thing, so I put my paperwork into Palace Chase. And I was accepted. I came back for an interview in life support, working F4s. And Terre Haute was the first place I called. And ironically, they hired me.
So when you went in active duty, were you able to, you chose life support to go into?
Yeah, I remember
How
they
did that work?
gave me a little piece of paper and a dot matrix and it was cut out even, and it said aircrew life support, and it did the explanation was pretty bare. It was pretty bleak.
It's like 5 sentences, maybe, if I remember
I
right.
was like, I don't know, the name sounds cool. What the heck?
I read it on a green screen.
I got nothing else going for me.
Well, I had a whole lot of choices, and when I put in code 3 for color vision, it went to like 5 choices.
I had a whole lot of choices until I put in my ASVAB scores. That's never going to get old.
They are kind of fun. Yeah, so that was 83, and you were in life support, which in 2008 they merged into aircrew flight equipment. So just for, the time frame there. So how long were you in life support before we met, do you think? Do you remember?
So that would be in, I think it was 1991 when we met. Yeah, because we did an acceptance inspection. I think we got 6-year jets.
Right.
And that's when I came up there, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because nobody wanted to go. I was like, I'll go. So it was either Hahn, Germany, or Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I'm like, sign me up for Sioux Falls. Ain't never been there.
Yeah. You and Randy, a parachute guy, came?
Randy Hallen, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So then we met you. I think you came out from some steaks or something. Come out to the hog house.
I did. You had an asteroids game. I'm like, this guy is awesome, man. He's got an asteroids game. He's got a hog house. He's grilling brats. And I wasn't too crazy about the horses, but I went.
But we didn't have enough time to ride horses.
Yeah, we did. We rode them down the road. I was like, don't you have a motorcycle?
Oh, did we ride?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
And I still came back.
You did? Oh, man. Yeah, so if it was 91, I became supervisor of my shop in like I got on full-time 92, November of 92. Mm-hmm. So we met before that. And then we both became supervisors. I'm leading up to one of my favorite stories that you're going to tell. And you had become supervisor over in Terre Haute as well. Yeah,
so I had been in life support until from 91 to 90, 95, 96, and I got I was switched and I became a recruiter for 3 years, and then I went back to life support as a WG worker, and then the superintendent position came open, 99 I think it was, and I applied for it, and got it.
So we were right on the same time frame. So then it comes time for a conference. And, we'd rather be thought of as stupid than to open our mouth and remove all doubt. So brand new supervisors are going to your first conference, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna observe, try to be quiet.
What's the safest seat on the bus? The front one.
Yeah. So I get on. We're in Blues. We're off base because it's at the Minnesota Guard unit, and up in Minneapolis. And I'm sitting there, and I got my little case, whatever, note taker things.
And I do not.
kind of watching everybody come up the stairs in the bus. And then
I looked for the safest seat on the bus, and somebody who looked like they didn't know what they were doing, like I didn't know what I was doing. And I found him sitting in the front row, and I'm like, this is my guy. I'm going to latch on to him. Anyway, I sat down, and I looked at him. I looked at him again. I said, you look familiar. I think I know you.
Really?
I think I've been to your house.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's when I finally really looked up at you and like, Pop. Like, yep. There we were.
But you still couldn't tell what color my eyes were.
No. Even if I had color vision, I wouldn't look that close and analyze.
Wow. Sorry. Disabled joke. I'm sorry.
Oh man. Yeah. So that was like the re-beginning of just a great friendship that I'll cherish forever. And we've just had a lot of fun. I remember we went out to dinner and we went and ate barbecue.
Yes. Cause that was a standard. When you're on a trip, you have to eat barbecue somewhere, sometime. I don't care where you were.
Yep. And so every time we were together at a conference or anything like that, we'd go get
barbecue or chicken wings.
Or both. Big piles of chicken wings.
Oh yeah, like little cordwood they were stacked up.
Yeah.
You could eat 3 wings and be full.
Yeah, that's another little story. Oh, man. Yeah, and then let's see, like the chronology of your, you mentioned some of it. So you came back into life sport at like 98, is that?
99.
99.
Yeah.
Okay. And got supervised same year you got that.
Yeah.
Pretty
So I
close.
came back as a worker, and then I turned around and became a supervisor.
Yeah. It was a challenging shop to learn.
It was.
As time went on, it got a lot harder.
You know, ironically, those relationships have actually been repaired. It's really kind of neat. One of the guys that probably had the biggest butt heads with lives just close here by me, and I go see him on a regular basis. So,
Yeah. Well, when you're in the shop, I mean, it's a lot of high pressure. It's a zero failure, and a lot of people in the garden, like ops and maintenance, they have things that they can describe that way. But, we were always trying to have you have your plan A, and you have your plan B,
and then you have a chart.
another chart, and then a plan C and a D, just to make sure that we weren't the ones to cause or not recover from a situation. So there was a lot of pressure on that. So, when people are working together, it can test some relationships, at the time. And I mean, everything's repairable anyway.
Most everything.
Everything.
The biggest fear is, obviously aircraft accidents. And I don't know if I'm a schlep rock or what, but I've had my share of being involved with or being a part of a squadron that had its share of mishaps. None my fault. So the Accident Investigation Board said.
Yeah. And then we've had some of those as well. And a lot of our friends have. I mean, it's just the nature of the game. So, all right. So, how did you get the handle pup? We kind of glossed over that.
Did we?
I did.
Because I thought we covered it.
You wanted me to.
Well, I get to Georgia Air Force Base, and I'm a brand new Airman Basic. They don't make those anymore, by the way. Everybody gets 2 stripes. But anyway, a brand new Airman Basic, and I am really excited about this career field. And I'm going to set it on fire. And I walk in, my hair's cut, my boots are polished, my uniform's pressed, and I'm ready to impress somebody. And I walk in and I meet the guys, and they said, well, the boss isn't going to be in for a while. I said, oh, okay. He said, he probably had a rough night last night. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, my kind of guy. So anyway, about 10 o'clock, he rolls in. His field jacket's unzipped, and his boots hadn't seen kiwi in 6 months, and his hair's messed up and needs to be cut. And I went up to him and I kind of gave him that guy, good morning, sir. Sergeant Durcholz here. And he's like, get away from me. I'm like, what'd I do? I'm like, we don't generally talk to him before noon. It's like, okay. So he takes his coat off, grabs me by the shirt, and says, let's go. And I wasn't gonna pull back. I was okay, let's go. So we go down to the squadron commander's office, and he's gonna introduce me to the commander. He goes, look, boss, we got a new puppy. He's like, okay, how you doing? I'm like, wow, a new puppy. That's hazing, but I like it.
But I like it.
So, it went downhill at my naming ceremony.
And that was right away. Now, where was your first assignment, you said?
Georgia Air Force Base, Victorville,
That was your
California.
first one, okay. Yeah, for some reason I was thinking west farther.
You can't get much farther west without getting your feet wet.
Let's see. So the chronology, you went right from that unit straight to the Guard?
Yeah, I did. So I applied for Palace Chase probably the fall of that year that I got. Well, I'd been there about 2.5 years. Or 2 years, and I'd filed, and I went and applied for Palace Chase. And I remember they go, well, you want to look about the Guard? Yeah. So they gave me the TV VCR. They set it up in the broom closet and closed the door and let me watch the videotape. I'm like, well, he's got to be better than being in his closet. Yeah, I'll take the Guard. But it seemed to fill all the squares for me. My wife, being newly married, she's a diabetic. So being able to bring her back home to the family, being able to do the military, what I really come to really like, perhaps maybe the only thing I was good at, but so it seemed like a good fit. So I applied and came for an interview right over Christmas, and then April the 1st, 1986.
There you go. Another date.
Yeah. But,
to live in infamy.
yes. Yeah. So anyway, I enlisted in the Guard then. And, from then on, I never looked back. It was a great deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember us coordinating quite a bit, probably doing inspections and things. And, we obviously wanted compliance 24/7, 365, kind of hard to do. We've got some Air Force standards on us that we don't have quite the manning that they do. And
well, I would tell you that the one compliance story that I love, probably one of my favorites, is that while the inspector was inspecting everything out in the shop, I realized that I was deficient on some forms and some papers that were pretty important in my accountability book. So I called Jim and I says, "Hey, you got these papers?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, Can you email them to me?" So he sent me soft copy, and I burned all the copies off, stuck them in my binder. And as she was reading that binder, which, by the way, I had none of that stuff, and it wasn't located anywhere where you said it was. She was sitting on she was sitting in a chair, and underneath the chair was a bag of radios that I had to hide so nobody would find them because they were off record.
Old PRC 90s, probably.
PRC 90.
Things that are
-2s.
They were worth almost as less than the -1s. Yeah, I remember the tester on those things too. That old 24B or whatever it was. Yeah, you're trying to test it, and you just move it on the mic deal, and then all of a sudden you'd get a pass on it and stuff.
That's all you're looking for is a green light. This one's good.
That was a Vietnam era. Line of sight.
Yeah.
It was just basically a glorified walkie-talkie. Had a beacon on it.
The beauty is that we got to, I think, being in the military, being in the Air Force, and especially in the life support from, the mid 80s, and the F-16 was brand new, and the F-4 was still very viable. The F-15 was very viable, and you still had the A-7 around, and there's a variety of aircraft, and a lot of heritage, a lot of the just a lot of the old fighter pilot ways and the old fighter squadron ways. But to see that and be part of that in that age was really, I think, pretty neat. Seeing it come to its full potential in '91, when the Gulf War started, mm-hmm. and it's just validation, and it just felt good to be part of it.
Yeah, no doubt. I loved being in ops and just being there when the pilots were stepping and getting, just heading out on the mission, and you just might have just loaded them up with weapons and ammo, and
mm-hmm.
and later on in life the more crypto type radios and things, and it was I really enjoyed it as well.
It was definitely a great job for a young person who liked to be really close to the action, and you start to befriend those guys, and you take them on as friends, and some that I have today that are some of my best friends.
Same here. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of good people, and I learned a lot from them too, because there was even a certain level of just professionalism where you knew that maybe some of these guys outside of flying there might have been a riff here and there or whatever, but boy, I tell you what, to come to the mission and the flying
yes.
and the briefing and the debriefing and I've got your back, and this is just at squadron at home. Then you take it overseas, and you just watch, everybody, not just pilots, but everybody, ops, maintenance, intel, finance, everybody is just pulling together on some austere base out in the middle of nowhere, and you just can't copy that feeling. I think there's not a lot of people that get that feeling.
Yeah, I think once you're in a fighter squadron and they recognize your role in that fighter squadron, no matter where you go, you're kind of interchangeable. And that was kind of obvious and apparent to me when we were down at Savannah doing that search and rescue training. That was a big hoot. And you could take some rainbowed squadrons, bring them together, and the life support dudes just kind of, all dudes and dudettes just kind of clicked, and everybody kind of found their thing, and there was no griping, bitching, or complaining. Everybody just kind of did their thing. And I thought it was kind of neat. And even from the pilots, you kind of had that rapport right off the bat.
Right. Yeah, and it seemed like the training was taken a little bit more seriously when you're over there.
Yeah.
Because you gave pre-training. Say your every third year combat survival training, water survival, and they took that, to a certain level of seriousness. But then when you're actually going over there and you're pre-training, then it's a little more intense, and they ask a few more questions. But then I remember being over there at a few different places where we were giving extra training in the motel room on the base, where we would just gather together, and they would ask a lot more questions, and we'd touch a lot more buttons, and really that's when handheld GPSs were coming out at the time as well. And it was pretty cool seeing the intensity of, I'm over here, and I may lose this jet out from under me, and I really need to know this stuff. It was cool.
Yeah, it certainly is one of those times when that relationship you have, they look at you like, okay, I need you to tell me everything I need to know, because this just got real. Mm-hmm. And you could laugh and joke and scratch and everything, but they knew when to really go, no, I need to know this now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I always described you as the king of faster and funnier. And what that is when you're doing more of your routine training, at the squadron, not overseas at war and stuff. And there's certain classes that you have to give that, they've heard 100 times, this and that. So when you're training fighter pilots, you can lose them quick.
It's kind of like talking to kindergartners.
Yeah,
somebody's going to start eating paste. Somebody's going to drift off.
Yeah, you see one or two sets of eyes go, in your brain goes faster and funnier, faster and funnier. And I've seen plenty of your briefings, and I have described you for 20 years as being the king of faster and funnier.
You got another button there.
Let's see. Let me take a look here. Oh yeah. That's for me.
Oh, okay. Of course it is.
You know how that is. Oh, that's for me too.
No, it is. I remember pilots would come in and they have to do their egress hanging harness training every, 180 days, and then after 90 days, or 90 when 180 days. But anyway, they go, do I have to hang in the harness again? I've hung 100 times. And I say the beautiful thing is, when you leave here, you can say you've hung 101 getting a harness.
Right. Oh man, yeah, a lot of good times. So, what stands out in your mind the most is in your life sport career? But I want to touch on your other stuff too as we go here, because there's plenty more to unwrap.
I couldn't hold a job. I had several.
What's a couple of your most memorable things, that you did in life support, whether it's before or after being a supervisor?
Well, I'd say early on this has been the first year that I was in the military. We headed to Germany from George Air Force Base with 18 jets, 3 6 ships, and the General Gene Threet was in charge. He led the first 6 ship over there. We got basically just feet dry, and landing at Yever Air Base, Germany, and the number 5 and number 6 lost wingman, and slapped the radome on number 6 on the vertical stab of number 5.
Oh.
And anyway, both jets crashed, and all 4 aviators walked away without a scratch. But I didn't know that, and I was like, man, this just got fun, and now I'm going to get fired. But anyway, I just seriously went into what just happened. And it was that moment for me when you go, this is for real. I mean, it's a lot of fun drinking beer and everything else and traveling the world, but this just got real. And, kind of from that moment on, I not that I didn't take it serious before, but I was just working, and now it just became something real. And in true fashion with the aviators, I wouldn't want for anything while I was in Germany. I mean, they bought beer, they bought me dinner, they took care of me. And I remember coming home, and my life support officer, one of my supervisors said, maybe we'll give him an award for packing them, because I was assigned to the kit room and the flight line. And so I'd put all those parachutes and harnesses or survival kits in. And Captain Jerry Sturmer, I never forget it. He looked at him and he goes, "Write him an award." Why? He was just doing his job. And it kind of ticked me off, but then I thought, he's absolutely right. And, the privilege of doing that job, and the reward wasn't in the award. The reward was in doing your job and doing it right.
Yeah. And then having a beer with those guys that use those things after the fact, and just seeing the appreciation from them. It's huge.
And somebody asked me that when I did my exit interview video as command chief, and they said, what sticks out? And I said, I could sit here for 2 hours, but the thing that really kind of resonates with me is we had out at the air base while I was here at Terre Haute, we had 2 jets midair, and simply just freak accident, and one guy died. And anyway, the other guy, I was in that evening when they brought him back in, and he came in and gave me a hug, and his wife gave me a hug as well. And he's a father of 4 kids, 4 girls, and he never forgot that to this day. He treats me, just differently. I mean, we have a very tight relationship. But one of the things I told him is that he said, I don't know if I'm gonna fly anymore. I don't know if they're gonna let me back in the jet. I don't even know if I want to. And I said, well, that's your decision to make, and that's fine. But while you're in this squadron and you're in stuff in my shop, you're going to look like everybody else. You aren't going to look any different. You're going to get a helmet and a harness and G-suit, and you're going to get fit back up. You can do what you want, but you ain't going to look any different than anybody else because you're not.
That's awesome.
And so we had some more good conversations, but that was just really one of those tough times that it's a good bonding moment. Mm-hmm. You hate to see it happen, and then going down to the funeral, and I remember just sitting, not knowing what to say to the pregnant widow with a toddler.
Yeah.
And fortunately, his call sign was Padre because he was on the right side with the Lord, and I just knelt down by her side, and I took her hand in mine. I looked at her and I said, "Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry for your loss." And she looked at me and she said, "Thanks for taking such good care of him." She said, "I never worried when he was there."
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, if I could ever have what she has, that would be great.
Yeah, no doubt.
So those are just a few of those really poignant. I got funny stories and, pranks and everything else that were some highlights, but definitely leaving the flying days behind and starting an Intel career was a very defining time in my life when it was something that I wasn't good at, something I didn't particularly care for, but it's something I had been trained and taught, like the professionals before me, the officers, the pilots, the other people in ops, that we were going to do this, and it was a mission.
So how did that all come about? What went on with your unit, since you bring up the Intel change?
Well, so we, I guess back in 2007, we got BRAC'd, or 2006, I think is when the BRAC came out, and we lost our airplanes, and we were going to go out of business, and that simply meant just that. We were going out of business. And so the Adjutant General found us a mission along with a couple other guys who got real creative, and this Intel mission was really, really growing and emerging, especially in the unmanned aerial vehicles. And so they latched on to a DGS, distributive ground station, and so this is what we're going to do. And so this was going to give everybody a job who wanted a job, and it was going to be something that was sustainable, and it had some outside application, and it was going to be a really good deal. We're all going to be, mostly all of us going to be AGRs now, from technician back to AGR. And so it was a win-win, aside from having to go to Intel school and be Intel.
Yeah, that is tough.
It was
a schools.
It was a 6-month school, and 5.5 for everybody else. All I want to get my money's worth.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, it was, so in 2007 we flew our last sortie, and then we kind of milked it out from there and tried to do a bridge mission. People were leaving for Intel school. They were moving in temporary skiffs, secured compartmental information facilities. And as we all kind of trickled through school, I remember asking a squadron commander at the time, Kip Clark and ask him. I says, "So what does a 1N4 do? Because I'm colorblind, and that's about all I qualify for." And he goes, "Well, I'll go down to Goodfellow Air Force Base and I'll ask him." And he went down there and they go, "We can't tell you." I was like, "What do you mean? No, we can't tell you what the school's about." I was like, "You kidding me?" So he came back. I'm like, "All right,
Pick me.
pick me. I guess I'm going."
Wow. Going in totally blind.
Yeah.
How old were you? About?
I'd probably about, I'd say it's about early 40s.
Oh my
42.
gosh. I can
43.
just think of myself trying to go into school that
Well,
intense at that age.
I was 40. I was 43. Wow. That's right. Because while I was there, I celebrated my 25th anniversary from when I went to basic training. Mm-hmm. And I told the kids that. I said, 25 years ago today, I went to basic training. They're like, "What?"
Yeah.
I'm 17. I'm 19. Like, yeah.
Plus a lot of active duty people in there like 25 years ago. Why are you even still in?
Yeah.
Because they have no concept
Yeah.
of you going past.
Yeah. Shouldn't you be better at it by now?
Gotcha.
Whoop. Different bank of sounds.
Busted.
There you go. That one's for me. Oh, man. Yeah, because I remember we talked on the phone. Actually, there was a period there where we didn't talk all that much because, I mean, your schooling was intense. There was a lot of changes here. I remember coming over. I don't remember if we visited once personally, but I remember, I think it was, and you drove me onto base. And it's like, nothing against the base, but, I mean, there was no airplanes there.
No.
The buildings, they weren't the nicest buildings. Lots of grass and weeds growing up through the cracks, all that. But then there was one building that we could go into, and you open the door and it's like you're going into the land of Oz. It's like, ah.
Yeah.
And facilities like crazy. But I mean, and there's a reason to have things looking like that too, because there's people all over the nation that spy on Air Force bases, Army bases, Guard bases, everything. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. The way it looked just run down. I'm like, yeah.
I don't know if
leave
that
it
was by
there.
design or that's just the way it was.
I don't know. But because your unit grew when you went to Intel, right? It wasn't only just the better paying jobs, but the harder schools to learn. But was there more slots overall? Did you have to do a lot of recruiting?
We did have to do a lot of recruiting simply because we had a lot of people who didn't want to make the jump. They were far enough along in their technician career, and they didn't want to make the change. So I was probably me and 5 other senior NCOs, senior master sergeants. We made the jump, and full-time senior master sergeants. And but we were kind of the old people then. I mean, we went from being kind of new senior master sergeants to everybody was kind of looking at us going, "Now what are we doing?" I'm like, "I have no idea what we're supposed to do."
Yeah. Yep. And you go with your buddy and shut the door and really start grabbing into rags, calling people.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's where the networking and the relationships really came in. Is my my director of operations, Mike Holmes. He says, we need to go to Langley. We need to make some friends. And so we went up there and went to the War Operations Center, and I started making friends with schedulers and everything else. And it was those connections that I felt like I could call somebody when I had a stupid question, which really wasn't, but I didn't want to ask a dumb question. And then just started visiting other Guard units and active duty units and just making friends wherever I went. And that paid dividends for me. It really helped me out.
Leaving old Jimbo behind. All those new friends.
Oh, no. Jimbo was right there with me because Jimbo's the only guy I still talk to, or
Nice.
that will still talk to me. You've been waiting to push that button, haven't you?
Nice. Cheater.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, because it was interesting because I had the deal of 35 years in the same career field all the way through, except group chief the last 3 years, but still was a supervisor of the shop there. But yeah, just watching you with the changes and the progress and the thought patterns, and we'd talk quite a bit on different things going through your head and other. How many different in Intel? How many different positions did you have?
Well, I started out as I was a senior enlisted for high altitude. So everything U2 and Global Hawk. So I was kind of helping to set that up. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was having to help set that up. And so, quite frankly, I just made it up. And it all seemed to come together. But then I had to go back and get qualified as a 1N4 network Intel network specialist, I guess. And I did that, and then I became the NCOIC of all things high altitude. So imagery, comments, SIGINT, ELINT, all of those. And then ran the high altitude crew for a few years. Spent a year working nights, which was horrible. And then I got passed over for the chief slot. And I'd kind of resigned to the fact that senior master sergeant was probably pretty good. I was probably 2 steps ahead where I should be, and I just need to be thankful and go on. And about 2 days later, the group chief, or the group commander, Colonel Matt Brown, said, "Come with me." I said, "Don't tell me you got to make me an offer I can't refuse." And he goes, "Yep." So I filled in as so I went from a senior master sergeant, NCOIC of high altitude, to the group chief, and I missed the squadron chief and jumped straight to the group chief. And I filled in as a senior master sergeant, then I got hired for the job, and then I got promoted, all within about 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I held the group chief position at the 181st Intelligence Wing, our group, and then I went to the 181st Intelligence Group, and then I went to the 181st Intelligence Wing as a command chief.
And that was, as far as that position, did they give you much time to think about it and stuff with that one, or was it just that's just the progression?
Well, I didn't want the group chief job when I got it.
You couldn't refuse.
Yeah, I did. It literally was an offer I couldn't refuse. But I will tell you this: working with Matt Brown was one of those things that he took me to all of the. I was a court-appointed attendee at most professional development courses, and but it turned out to be something I really liked because I could network at a whole different level. And he had set my we did a flight path, and what do you see yourself doing, and timeline and everything else, and I basically kind of was going to ride this out. And next thing I know, I handed my flight path, and he said, "Okay, thanks." And he comes back about 20 minutes later with a different one. He said, "Sign it." And I'm like, "That doesn't look like the one I handed you." He said, "No, it's not. This is what you're going to do." And being command chief was on there. And I said, "But I don't really want to be the command chief." He goes, "Sign it." And so I just resigned the fact that probably wasn't going to happen, but okay. Well, about a year and a half later, get a new boss, and the command chief, his time is done. And he says, Matt Brown is now the vice wing commander, and he says, "Hey, you need to put in for this job." I said, I don't want that job. He said, "You need to put in for the job." And so I came home and talked to my wife, and I said, I really don't want the job. And she looked at me and she said, "Well, the only advice I got for you is God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called." And anyway, I had a revelation and a little intervention from God, and I decided to go in for my interview. And I walked in there, and I had poked fun at everybody, every 06 on the board, and I was laughing. And anyway, it was probably one of the best interviews I did. I didn't want the job.
You're relaxed. Straight up.
I didn't want the job, and I was hoping that it showed. Anyway, about 4 hours later, the boss calls me and says, "You're my new command chief." So it turned out to be a job that I probably fit my lifestyle at the time. I've had some kids with some colorful issues have happened, addictions and so on and so forth. And I would have people stop by in my office and ask me to pray with them. I'd have them stop by my office and just in a mess because they have a sibling or, a child who was in addiction and didn't know what to do. And I felt like God gave me the resources, and he also gave me the opportunity and to have a meaningful conversation with people. And it was really interesting because I would almost come home weekly, if not sometimes daily, and go, it happened again. Mm-hmm. And it was funny. They made fun of my office. I had 2 lamps in there and probably the oldest chairs on base. They were comfortable. Everybody liked them, but said they were hideous. Anyway, and they kept saying that the wing commander kept saying my office looked like a funeral home. Well, if the shoe fits.
Yeah, well, just knowing you the way I have through the years, and I will just say that you're one of the greatest men of faith that I've met, and we've also had many talks when that was tested, and when you'd called me and talked about a couple different positions before you went in, and you sounded hesitant, on that side of the phone, but I know what was going on. This side of the phone was like, dude, absolutely, because you really had no idea how many people you were going to help, and just having people, especially in the military, coming into your office and asking you to pray with them, like, that is amazing. I mean, it's almost like you wouldn't even say that on TV, and you'd have 100 spears coming at you and stuff. But I tell you what, it was the people that knew it, they recognized it, they trusted it, and they utilized it. And that's the hardest part, for people to take that step and utilize the faith and the strength, and then to involve especially a senior NCO chief to help you along with that. I just thought that was great. We had more than one phone call on those subjects, and I hoped that I encouraged you and stuff, but I knew you had to make your own decision, or your boss was making the decision for you, as you said.
Well, I would tell you there was a very short list of people I called regularly, if at all, for advice, and I knew you loved me enough to tell me the truth, and I took that to heart, and I said, you know what, if sometimes you don't really believe in yourself, but someone who knows you well enough to go, yeah, you need to do this. It needs to push you out of your comfort zone just a little bit. So, they were very helpful, and it goes back to it goes back to that relationship that we developed in the job that we had, and that really kind of solidified this was somebody I could trust. And when you stay overnight at somebody's house and you drive 12 hours out of your way just to go visit them, that's an important person. I still could have fixed your shower door. I think we could have saved it.
No. Oh, man. Yes. So I'm trying to think of is there anything in your career between there that you think we've missed that we should be talking about?
Well, the obvious thing is obviously during my life, and this, is that back in 1998, we lost our first son from a genetic disorder, and then back in 2016, we lost our second one. And throughout those times, you can really be tested. And I will tell you that I remember the wing commander I had at the time, Colonel J. Van Pelt. I thought he would come to the visitation when Zach, our first son, died back in 1998. I thought he was going to come to the funeral home here in Brazil, and he did not. And then I thought he was going to come to Jasper to the funeral home, and he did not. And I was a little disappointed. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until we got to the gravesite, and I was walking away from the grave, and there he stood in his full dress blues on Memorial Day, not with his family, but with me. And he was a big bear of man. He had these great big giant paws, and he reached out and he grabbed my hand and he pulled me in and he just held me. Mm-hmm. And he put his arm around me and he told my mom, he goes, "Don't worry, we're going to take care of him." And he did not lie a bit.
Right.
I could be sitting in my office just having the worst day, and he would come in and he would sit down. I'd be looking out the window. He'd come in and close the door and sit down and not say a word. Like Job's buddies in the pit. He would just sit there with me for about 10, 15 minutes. And then he would come over and put his big paw on my shoulder, tap me a little bit, and he'd walk out.
Walk out. That is powerful.
It is. And so those people like that in my life that I've had the pleasure of coming across and coming in contact with, I try to emulate those. And, being 58 years old now, and you can look at your own kids and other people you come in contact with and go, I have a wealth of past that I can draw on. And I believe that's what I've been called to do.
Well, and the things that you went through is just unthinkable, and there's nothing that anybody can say, and nobody knows what to say. And for him to know exactly, man to man, what to do and how to be, I don't think I've heard that story before. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it kind of reminded me of the time in 2016. I'm in the line at the funeral home, and I'm greeting people, and it's been a little while, and I look up, and there's this big cowboy hat and this big grin. And there's old Jimmy. And somehow I was not surprised.
Some people say with his mustache now that you never smile. I said, you just can't see it. I just pull it up a little bit. But
if you tilt your head just right, you can see a little gray coming in.
Yeah, just a little. I wear it like a badge. I tell you. Yeah, and the cameras there just kind of glows like a spotlight. So I look at these cameras once in a while. Oh man, no.
So it's funny when you get out of the military and you kind of go, you know what, I'm going to grow my hair, I'm going to grow my mustache, grow my beard, and I'm just going to kind of let myself go. And anyway, I did that when I got out. And I was probably a year into retirement, and my beard was long, or for me it was long, and the net was gone. And I said, well, I'm going to go. We would walk an hour every day, so I'm going to go for a walk. So I'm walking up the road here, and then up the driveway here, and then down the road. And as I'm walking along, this truck kind of pulls over, and he says, hey, bud, where you headed? Need a ride? And I kind of looked at myself. I was wearing boots and a flannel shirt and a beard. I was like, I probably need to clean this up a little bit.
Sitting near Brazil, Indiana. I'm walking to the fairgrounds.
Hey, bud, where you headed? Hey, where are you headed? You need a ride? So I thought to myself, well, that was really kind that guy, as scary as I may look, felt like he could actually still pull over and ask me if I need a ride. Chivalry's not dead.
Oh, man. So the retirement portion. So before retirement and after. Hobbies, thoughts of hobbies, before and after. How are you? I know you've employed yourself some, so now you've got something to do. But what did you do for hobbies before and after?
That's the thing Annette and I talked about is I couldn't recall having hobbies. And when you're caring for a disabled child for 25 years of your marriage and raising kids the rest of it, that is your hobby. And
you did foster kids too.
Yeah, we fostered
during all this,
and then we adopted, and so it's been we're a chocolate mess. But anyway, so that kind of was our hobby, and the kids and caring for them, being caregivers, and you know what, we deployed a lot, and we went on trips a lot, and so I decided that I'm going to buy myself a drone, and I'm really going to get into that. I didn't last for long. I haven't flown it in a long time. Being retired was the easiest, hardest thing I've ever done. I like to think that when I retired, I had this all. I had this, man. I was just going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And I quickly found out I can't do everything I want, but I can do about anything I want.
Right.
And you have all these dreams and hopes going into retirement and stuff you're going to do. But I think that right off the bat, I did probably two of the things that sustained me. And that was I got really involved in the church and the buildings and grounds and maintenance and going to mass and, now serving mass and just really getting into that. And then also the House of Hope, which is a non-denominational Christian addiction recovery center. And they asked me to counsel. I'm like, I have no credentials to counsel. And they go, you've been to the school of hard knocks. You got two kids that were in active addiction. You came from an alcoholic home. You can counsel. And that has truly been rewarding for me. And it's changed my outlook on that population. Mm-hmm. So that has been kind of the two things I've thrown myself into and that I really enjoy. I do have a job, leadership coach, and I was telling somebody the other day, I said, I didn't know this, but all the training I went through and all that court-appointed professional development that I did, I really kind of enjoyed it. I just didn't think that the military was the right forum for what I was doing. It may have been. I just didn't feel like it.
Right.
But now it does.
You get you learn a lot more than what you ever really think you are through all that, like the military training and just all the, but the stuff that you guys went through, as a family, and we had visited here during some of that as well. But just the strength that we saw, so, and that's part of why when you were calling me on these other positions and some doubts and stuff, I'm like, dude, there's no doubt that that's the route that you need to take, and just use your experiences, what you've learned, pass that on. And I'll say it again, having people come into your office asking to pray with you, absolutely amazing. And we're going to fly drones tomorrow, by the way.
Are we really?
Sure. I brought mine.
It's a 1v1.
You're the one that got me interested. You showed me that one the first time.
Yeah.
Last time we were here. Yeah, January.
Three more times
21.
and we'll be even.
Yeah.
Show up here 3 more times, we'll be even.
3 more times, yeah. Yeah, we've got this little thing going on about travels and
who visits whom the most.
Yeah.
Every 6 years he shows up, whether he needs to or not.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody's going to believe that after listening to you on this deal. Yeah, so just been great friends for a long time. We talked about retirement forever, and just the looking forward portion of it. I mean, you look for, obviously retirement pay, getting paid to wake up. You've served, all that, earned it.
Right.
Nothing's been given. Actually, I made 2 months before I retired, I was walking through the hallway and I just made the comment of, I said, man, we sure are lucky being able to retire at the ages that we do. And one of the pilots pulled me over and he goes, what? And he looked at me and he says, lucky based on good decisions in the past. And I'm like, you are right. We've paid our dues, serving, loving it, but looking forward to the retirement portion of it, but definitely earned. But just being able to retire before the age 60 is huge.
It is a blessing. It is a gift. And I think when you look around and think, what am I going to do now in retirement? I don't think retirement is, just doing nothing. I think
No.
you find, you can only play so much golf and you can only take so many trips and spend so much time on the beach or whatever it is you want to do. I think the real joy, fulfillment, if you will, because when you leave a career in the military, it's hard to find something as fulfilling as that.
Right.
People look at you different and everything else. You really have to look hard, and you're going to strike out a few times, but finding that thing when you can serve something bigger than yourself, and you can do it on a more full-time basis for no pay. Now you're talking.
Right. After a soft start every morning.
After a soft start,
Nice and slow, get up, have your routines.
sleep in till 6:30, and you can get up,
Yep.
get your prayers in, and get moving.
Yep.
Got my list right here.
There you go. I used to be the chart man. Now you're the chart man.
Nope,
I think it was proven this afternoon.
I'm just a list guy. 'Cause
List.
at any given time, I got to recall what she said.
Well, I did. It did all come together for me when you were talking about that, and I was giving you the same kind of crap I am now. But when your answer to the question in the morning, I'm just going to work on my list, and that was good enough. That was awesome. It all came together.
I guess the one thing I want to say is, when you spend that much time in the military, I had 38 and you had how many years?
35.
35. When you spend that much time and you can see, it's a young man's game. Okay. Now there's wisdom and there's some stuff that, guys like us try to fill from our experiences, but you can definitely see when it's time to ride off in the sunset, to use your cowboy metaphor. Because if you're a super puncher, you know that.
Super puncher. Yo, Brisby, what time is it? Rodeo time. How much money you win at the last rodeo? all of it.
But
I would love it if he would see this someday. I got his shirt on. Just showed him the Super Puncher video today.
but no, I think you start to realize when it's time. And I think when at least for me, when I reached, that retirement age, 55 years old, and it sounds very young, but you go, I'm ready to move on to something else. And to make that drastic change in your life because you're secure enough in who you are, what you've done, and where you're going. And you just pull the trigger on it and go. Mm-hmm. Taking that uniform off for the last time, I didn't bat an eye. Because it wasn't who I was. It's what I did.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people get wrapped up in that's their identity. And I can see that. But you got to start looking around you. You got brothers in arms. You got sisters in arms. You got, good friends that you can go see. It's okay to let go.
Right.
It's okay then to grab onto something else.
And it can be difficult for a lot of people.
Yep.
That's why the VA's, stepped it up in different programs for transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question there. I just lost it.
7:22.
That was the answer. Those are both answers. How do you do that? You've always done that.
Weird, huh?
It is weird. Yeah. Just I know. I was going to ask you. Some people have done this. Have you saved any or maybe even one of every uniform you've worn? Because I change uniforms through our career quite often.
I do have my last uniform, I think. But I never was one to save stuff. Mm-hmm. I have my, this is never going to fit.
Same here.
I tell you what I did save was, so
I think you looked at my belly before my eyes when I showed up today.
Oh, there's all your eyes.
Oh man. I didn't blame you.
Green. Green. No, it was funny. It was one of the first trips I took over to Jaeger Air Base, Germany. And of course we'd been hitting the Jaeger Pilsner and we'd met up with a couple of Germans, and with the language barrier, it was amazing that we got this accomplished, but we decided that exchanging uniforms would be a great idea.
Excellent.
Boots and all. He got screwed on that deal. He got screwed, so he must have been drunker than I was. But anyway, so I walk into our end of trip party, and my life support officer looks at me and goes, "You better have another uniform with you." Like, yeah, I do. Because at the time, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still have that uniform, by the way, and there's no way I'm fitting into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like you. I saved my last uniform. I didn't have, copies of the ones in the past. And I've got one guy that I'm going to be doing an interview with coming up here. Yeah, and an amazing story. I haven't told you anything about him, and we're not going to here, but I will once we get done here. But his name is Larry Tenniger, and amazing story. His might be a 2-part or maybe even a 3-part on one of these. We'll just see. But I saw his display in the basement, and this dude's done Vietnam, and years later, he was combat medic in Vietnam.
Wow.
Years later, became a college professor, all kinds of story. Ended up finding out that the Navy needed corpsmen, and he reenlisted in the Naval Reserves in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And then he was the oldest guy standing in the line ready to go into Iraq, or not Iraq, but Kuwait.
Yeah.
And his first commander he's like, "My Marines do not trust this bank of corpsmen. Make it so they do." Turned around, walked away, and Larry took that and ran with it. Oh, and by the way, he's got like 17 powerlifting records, including some military ones.
Holy
He's
cow.
about this tall on me, and just built so many stories on that. But the uniform display that he had with boots in every piece was amazing on there. But I just didn't. I was like, last uniform, that's it.
Yeah, I did not. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I probably wasn't into, back in the day, we call it 3510.
Yep.
Yeah. It was a suggestion, not necessarily something we went by.
Right.
And you can look us through some of those old pictures and like, wow, it's a bit of a rebel back then.
Mm-hmm. A lot of changes, a lot of things went on. Just it's just fun staying close through all that. And then the retiring, because we retired like 4 months apart, something like that. And I ended up not being able to come over to yours. Or did you have you did an interview. I remember seeing an interview that was filmed.
I did an interview, but it fell right during COVID. And ironically, there'd be some senior NCOs and some chiefs come in that maybe been a little sour when they were leaving. And I'm not going to do a retirement ceremony. I'm not going to do this. I'm like, listen, dude, it's not about you. It's about your family.
Right.
You know, you deserve this. You've earned this. Let's do one. Let's do it right. And they reluctantly agreed. And then when I got out of it, they were not happy. They let me know that. But it was during COVID, and I was trying to bring a little bit of the pomp and circumstance down to a manageable level because it was kind of getting out of hand in any way. So that was my goal when I left there. I just really wanted to just thanks and see you. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't about me, and I had to kind of get over myself. So we had just a little something in the dining hall. Everybody sat 6 feet apart, and masks and everything else. And that whole COVID thing was a really interesting time. I was command chief at the time, and my boss, she had just been hired on as a wing commander, and COVID happened, and they shut everything down. And I asked her, I said, please don't send me home. Please just let me come to work. I'll stay in my office. I won't breathe on anybody. I won't lick any doorknobs. I won't do anything. Just let me. And so she said, okay, you stay in your office. I'll stay in mine, and we'll go have lunch. I said, okay. And I remember doing drill that April, and in the room where we were doing it live on Facebook, and I got a picture. It was just her and I sitting in this room. That was drill. Her and I talking to everybody. Mm-hmm. And it was to be a part of that. It was really interesting. And again, nobody had any idea what they were doing. They made it up as we went, but innovation and ideas came out. And it was really neat to see how life has changed since then in some respects. It was not all good, but there were some good ideas that came out of that. Got us thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know at our unit there was some talk prior to this, about the experimenting with certain people in certain career fields being able to operate at home. And, it was not a popular thought, but they had to write some kind of like a state pamphlet for it for technicians. And so they had been working on that, but it was very, very limited. And a friend of mine was kind of spearheaded on that thought pattern. In the FSS in particular, the admin type people could do a lot of their stuff at home. And when COVID hit, it was like making decisions minute by minute kind of thing. And they did find out that it can be successful, maybe not on a full-time basis, obviously, but at least having some kind of flexibility to work through some of those situations and have people that can do some work and help people from home. It was kind of interesting on that whole deal.
It was, I thought one of the neat things that I got to experience is I got to watch people step up, young kids step up and do things where it was flat out dangerous because we just didn't know. And they did it. And they didn't hesitate. And it kind of reinstilled that, you can always say, well, them dang kids, when I was a kid, I was happy to, walk uphill both ways to school with with no shoes. But they did it and they didn't hesitate. And it really kind of gave me a lot of, it reinstilled my confidence in some of those warriors out there that are doing this for the right reason. And again, it's another one of those things that go, okay, they're going to be okay. I can leave. They're going to be fine without me. So I thought that was a neat thing to see.
That's a good feeling to have because there's so much generation bashing, going on. And I've been guilty of it myself. But even on one of the previous podcasts that I did, I just explained, somebody's like, this next generation is just, going to ruin everything, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, yeah, they've been saying that for thousands of years,
Yeah, and we have been running it.
Yeah. And
we did our own.
There's good people in every generation. It's just the social media stuff has just kind of really got things out of whack. But tons of good people. So if you got exposed to them before you left and you felt good about leaving, that's a win.
I don't know that I would have picked that for my swan song, but I do think that it was definitely something neat to see. And even being in the Intel career field, I was a bit apprehensive because I wasn't good at it, didn't understand it. It was a small part of my job because being a supervisor and putting something together was my main job, networking. And to see these kids stand up and brief and run a mission and make call outs. I just remember one night we were working an op, and one of the newest airmen we had on the floor, and we were just kind of zoomed out. We could see a convoy, and we were just kind of zoomed out far enough to where you could see just a little bit ahead of them, but yet still see what it was. And we'd been toying with the having crew comm because they wouldn't let us have any comm. We had to type everything in, and so we had crew comm. And this young kid, he's a two-striper, and he's probably 6 months into this career field back from tech school. And he goes, "Stop." And a few seconds later, this Humvee stops. And then they zoom in on it. And sure enough, it was an IED. And had they run over it, they would have been dead.
Oh, man.
And so this Marine lieutenant sends us and this was more than once. This Marine lieutenant, who's in the lead vehicle, sends an email back and says, "I don't know who that person was, but I don't have to write letters home, and my wife's not going to get a letter."
That's amazing.
And just, I thought to myself, at that age, could I have done that?
The confidence.
Yeah.
The not thinking twice, the 1 second reaction.
If he'd have been wrong, you could go on and on, but there was more than one occasion like that we had people, young people, who were doing some awesome things like that and saving lives. We talk about in the fighter world, you're basically just taking lives, and that's your job. And in Intel, we were doing a lot of saving lives.
I never thought of it that way before.
I didn't either until I sat in with a drone pilot one time, and Skates was her name, and she said that she was doing an Overwatch, and I said, "So you like killing people from afar?" She said, "Nope." She said, "I'm doing an Overwatch tonight. My fiance was on the ground, and basically you could see that they were, white hot, and at night, so we could see them all sleeping, and we did Overwatch. They did an Overwatch that night and watched over them and seen that nobody coming in to disturb them. They had one person awake on the radio, and that drone was circling all night long."
Nice.
And, just the confidence it instills when you have somebody who's really hanging it out there on your every word, whether you're typing it or saying it. And I got to see things like that I thought, this is incredible. And so she said, I'm here to save lives. I'm here to do Overwatches and things for these people, and I'm not necessarily here to take it to the man or, and I thought that's a whole different perspective on what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm. That is really cool. Really cool.
When we're in the life support world, we send our officers out to the front line to fight. We would sit back and wait on them to come back. And not that it wasn't dangerous sometimes, didn't have its own, but what you got to see when you were in the intel world, you were the tip of the spear. Mm-hmm. When you go, "That's it," and they go, confirm, and you see the camera shake, you know it. Yeah. Dead man walking. That's a lot to live with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember being, we were aircrew flight equipment at the time, but going overseas. But just us being able to be shown not classified stuff, but just enough to give our flight equipment people, and especially the younger ones, the view, just a little bit of a view of that. But I haven't heard that story before. But we got to see a few things. But yeah, it's amazing how they all work together. The different training, the reaction time, the different ages, personalities brought into it. Pretty amazing.
It was neat to see young kids stepping up to the plate and assuming responsibility. And I just thought to myself, did I have what it takes to do that? I don't know. And so there's a lot of bad going on, and there's a lot of things we could complain about. But you want to see the glass half full or half empty. Because if you see it as half empty, it's never going to get full. So I think that sometimes we need to change our viewpoint. And 38 years in the military, now 2 years retired, I can probably reflect back on those things and go, yeah, I'm glad I was part of that.
No doubt.
I didn't enjoy it at the time, but I did get to do things and see things, and it was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I remember one time we were sitting me and Colonel Brown were sitting in a classified briefing somewhere, and they were briefing just us, and this whole big group was just briefing us because we were the guests. And as we were sitting there, I leaned over to him and I go, "Do you know what they're talking about?" He goes, "Nope." Good. We just kept on. He turned out to be one of those guys. It was really funny. We went over to Korea, and so we got to talk to the South Korean wing commander, and it was kind of a big deal. And so when we got in there, my Matt hated coffee, and he hated IPA beers, and so I would generally talk him into it or put him in that position. So we're sitting. I just been through finishing school, so when you're chief, you go to finishing school. They teach you how to use what fork to use, not orange pinky and everything else. And so anyway, we're sitting there at the in the wing commander's office, and he's got, these people stepping and fetching. He's got lieutenants. He's like, "Can I get you guys anything to drink?" And I go, "Yeah, how about some coffee? Let's have some coffee." Yeah. And of course, my boss knew that it was rude to refuse it, so I go, "Yeah, let's have some coffee." So they bring this coffee in a little cup, and it's strong, and it's mud, and it's probably not any good. But I love strong coffee, so I'm sitting next to him. And the wing commander's talking, and I'm just thinking to myself, how am I going to get him to drink his coffee? And I just him, I'm like, So I picked it up, and I just took a sip. I looked at the wing commander and go, "This coffee is delicious." I looked at my boss and go, "Did you try the coffee?"
Sure, he appreciated that.
He tried the coffee. When we left there, he was not happy.
You've brought joy to many people's lives through your
Mostly
career.
my own.
That is something. Long career.
It was.
Career.
Some people said, do you miss it? Do you wish you wouldn't have? Do you wish you would have stayed longer? No, it was good while it lasted. Made a lot of good friends. But I just feel I'm called to something else now. Mm-hmm. And I think in life, if you can realize that you're called to something else and not just continue doing what you're doing because maybe you're good at it, maybe it's comfortable. I think it's a real challenge, to put that all aside and to grab onto something new. And it's okay to be a little bit, I had a shirt that says, "Do it scared." If it's something you're not familiar with, just do it. And yeah.
That's the way my brother is. He can do just about anything, construction-wise and all that stuff. And I've asked him some questions. And his son is a contractor, so he's like, "Well, it's more of a question for Adam or whatever." But he's like, "Just start, just dig in, just start." Confidence. I wouldn't have had the confidence like that young person you're talking about. When I think of myself at that age, I think I can say that I would have been in observation mode mostly, and either not able to react or too scared to react, something like that. So, it's just a big difference in people. But it's good to hear that confidence in the young folks, because I just get tired of people complaining all the time about the next generation.
Mm-hmm. And it's fun to teach them some pranks as well. We had a lieutenant colonel who was getting checked out as a MOC, missions operations commander, and he was pretty proud of what he was doing. So doing a U2 mission was pretty difficult. It was kind of dynamic. You had to be on your toes because you're talking to a pilot halfway around the world. And, something goes wrong, you have to communicate with them, and it's pretty scary. And especially if you're not used to talking on radio. So anyway, another guy was giving him his check ride, and he had told the pilot earlier, "Hey, it's check ride." And, So if you have anything to say at the end, just, rib him a little bit. That's good. So the mission's over and the lights come on because you're in the dark and it's cold in there because you got to keep the computers cool. And it's 7, 8 o'clock in the morning now. You've been working since 10 o'clock last night. And everybody's kind of just putting their stuff away. And then they turn the speakers on so you can hear the pilot talk. And anyway, as it kind of quieted down in this big room and all these Intel analysts and the pilot from the U-2 halfway around the world says, "Hey," he says, "I really appreciate tonight. You get a check right tonight." Yeah. I said, "How'd you do?" "I think so." He said, "Has anybody ever told you thanks? You did a great job tonight." He goes, "No, they haven't." He goes, "You ever wonder why?" And it's just dead silence.
Silence. I tell you, that's one thing though. You've brought a lot of joy into my career, because you just love to have fun with what you're doing. That's where the faster and funnier thing came from, with training pilots, and there's a lot of things you say that just go right past us too. You're a fast talker, You are a fast talker.
I may not have been any good at it, but it was fun to watch me.
Yeah, it'd be fun to watch you turn into a super puncher too. So he just learned about that tonight.
I'm going to be a super puncher. It's on my list of things to bucket list now.
Oh man. Well, and with retirement, you've got a beautiful house here. The garage, the grounds, the landscaping, all that stuff. You do need to get out of here and do other things because you've got it all done here already. Fly the drone a little more,
It's I have learned that I'm okay with not doing so many things that I thought I wanted to do. When we're working, we're driven to do this and do that. And when this is, I won't say all you got, but it becomes a higher priority, you think to yourself, yeah, maybe it's okay if I let the grass grow. I didn't get the grass mowed before you got here, by the way.
Oh, I didn't even look.
I know, Ed, and thanks for noticing.
That's what friends are for. Oh, man. Well, I can't really think of anything more to delve into.
Are we done already?
You had a great career,
That's up to interpretation, but we'll let it go where it was leaving the past.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we'll be talking about a lot more stuff the rest of the week. We got the weekend to be here with you.
Yes,
yet,
you do.
So we want to make sure that we have time to do this, and I appreciate it. Your story needs to be told, so we'll see if we get your permission to publish this later, and if we do,
we'll have probably 2, maybe 3 views.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're counting views, we'll be just fine. But just preserving people's stories and people that don't want stuff, put out on YouTube or broadcast. Just give them a digital copy for their family. So it's going to be a record, of that, and it'll.
Wait a minute. So we're not live right now?
Not live.
Why was I so nervous then?
We got a little post-production, that I can do.
This is great now.
I'm trying to think if we touched in on any stories where I have pictures or video to add.
That probably wouldn't be a good idea.
I got a lot of stuff on file. I can take a look. I remember scanning some stuff when we were playing back and forth when you were in life support early on. Yeah, I got to look back in what I call the archives. I used to have just a pup archives.
Take me home now.
Yeah, a lot of trips. Yeah, because you and I went out and did a lot of staff assistance visits together.
Yeah,
up in Duluth and Fresno and areas like that.
New York's
Syracuse. Yeah, we got called into that last minute.
Yep,
I missed a fishing trip with my daughter. And by the way, I think I must have told you because when we were coming back from New York visiting my daughter, went and stopped and visited Catfish. I think we took a picture and I think sent to you. It was a young man that was just thrown into a bad position and had to lead and all that, and he did well. And
he had a great attitude.
He did.
He reminded me, our careers kind of parallel because there was some hard times that we really had to fight through, and we could just see this kid doing the same thing. And so we call him Catfish because when you cut off a catfish's head, he'll bite down on something and he won't let go. And that's what you could cut his head off and he would not let go.
I tell you what, getting that pseudo assigned call sign, that you could just see the confidence in him just grew right there. Like he grew 2 inches taller.
Yeah.
And
He needed that because he was a little overweight.
yeah, a little bit. Sorry, Trev. That's fine. Nobody's ever going to see these anyway.
Yeah, that's right. We can
We'll
say
see.
whatever we want.
Oh man. Yep. So he's doing well. I think he's getting married and stuff, or maybe has recently got married. So
I hope so. That was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
He's not getting any younger.
second marriage,
Oh, yeah, the first one.
recent one. Yeah. He was a good guy, but yeah. And before I left, you might have been on the debrief. I don't remember, but we told leadership the story and
Yeah.
how he stood up.
Right.
And we said, all right, this is the call sign we gave him. Keep it if you want, but I'd highly suggest it. Please keep it up. And they must have, because
Oh, really?
it's yeah. I think it's still on him.
That was well earned.
Mm-hmm.
That was well earned.
Yep. Then we went to Niagara Falls, took some photos after that, and went home.
Yeah. That was a good trip.
So, how long do you think we've been at it? You've been looking?
I'd say an hour.
And 23.
Really?
Yep.
You talk a lot.
I don't. Yeah, I do. Oh, where's the sound effects? Right there.
You're slow on the sound effects. I've set it up
man.
3 or 4 times and got nothing.
I know. And like, I sit here with a thumb, and you're pretty smart. He's getting ready to do one of them.
Then I'll tell a sad story.
Oh man. Then I'll go. All right.
This is a heck of a setup you got here. I think we talked for as long as it took you to get set up.
It took a while.
It did take a while.
Yeah, it does. Takes a little bit, but it's fun.
And
it's fun.
the cowboy lamp in the back is the addition to the
Yes.
the new hog house.
Yes, the hog house, and actually I need to film the how the hog house came to be, what we use it for, the fire that we had in there, the remodel, and then how it rolled into the Hog House Chronicles, and to put the video podcast in there. But the Hog House has over 160 donated items other than what we've put in there, and it's basically a cowboy bar. So the back shop we turned into a studio, and we also can do some filming on the back bar. That's where we did 5 practice ones there,
Okay.
and it's pretty nice, pretty good setting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pup's latest addition, this big cowboy lamp.
The thing weighs
Back
about
there.
50 pounds, but it came from Rob Butch Weemuth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give him the kudos. And then there's another lamp over there, another cowboy lamp. So, but he wanted me to get those to you.
Got a horseshoe base to it.
Yep.
We have room in the Traverse. We got all this stuff in the old mobility package, but we'll have room for that. So, yeah, thank you very much, sir. And
welcome. It's
appreciate
my
your
pleasure.
French friendship.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, because we're laughing all the time. My gut hurts before we even started this. We got a whole weekend to go yet.
Oh, yeah.
So. But, yeah.
Yeah, wait till part 2 of this tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll just leave it set up.
Yeah.
Why not? All right. Take care, man.
See you, buddy.
Thank you. That's fun. That was fun.
You need to get some of these. These are way nicer than those.
Did they squeeze your head too hard for a while or anything? No. Good.
So how'd it sound, Mary?
Good.
Of course you're going to say that.
Of course.
You're too nice not to.